Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Ukulele Virtuoso Jake Shimabukurol. He has a new 2020 trio CD out, and this musician has been redefining what the ukulele is capable of for the last 20 years. He was born in Honolulu, Hawaii, and at 4 he was drawn to the sound of the instrument, and it literally means jumping flea. It was nearly 15 years ago that his rendition of George Harrison's ballad, While My Guitar Gently Weeps in Central Park, and it became one of the most watched clips on YouTube, and it went viral. It now sits at 16.5 million views, and since then he has been reimagining classics, and 21 years later after his first release, he continues to push boundaries on both the instrument and himself. So please get to know Jake and dig this interview, my friends.
Hi, Jake.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for your time.
I am very happy that you took a minute to talk with me today here at Neon Jazz. And let's talk about your trio CD. Give me an idea. You know, you've been around, you've been at this for a long time, you've been all over the world. What was your artistic vision with this particular project?
Yeah, well, the main thing was, not having drums on this record. You know, my last few records, there was a lot of heavy drumming on there. But the thing was, the last 5 years now, or the last couple years, I've been touring with this trio with Dave Preston on guitar and Nolan Werner on electric bass. In our shows, we don't have a drummer, so the idea was just to have a recording that kind of reflects the instrumentation, of what we've been doing, for the last few years. And I think it's a very unique sound. Dave Preston, the way that he approaches the electric guitar is just... He's almost like an electric orchestra, it's really cool, and Nolan's such a wonderful bassist, so it just provides such a wonderful foundation, for the ukulele, for the acoustic ukulele and the electric ukulele as well.
You've been at this for so long, you've done so many albums and projects. Are you kind of an existentialist when you go into a new process where you're thinking, I'm going to let life happen, or is this an active part of evolution, or what you're looking for with each successive album or project?
Yeah, I mean, this one, we just we rented the studio for 8 days, and we had no idea what we were going to record yet. When we're on tour and we do our sound checks at the venue, we usually end up just jamming on something, and a lot of times it's very spontaneous, very improvisational, and we'll start playing on something together, and then after we're done, we're like, oh man, we should have recorded that, So that was the idea, was just to go into the studio, just jam and have fun and play and make music and just have that freedom to create.
Maybe it's because of my roots being in Kansas City and it's seasonal, and right now it's cold and rainy, but anytime I hear about a childhood that begins in Hawaii with the ukulele, I'm just like, wow, that is charm beginning. So as you think about your childhood and getting involved with the ukulele and all of that, was it a charm beginning? Was it kind of love at first sight? It just kind of went from there?
Yeah, I mean, I was very fortunate. My mom played the ukulele, and then she introduced the instrument to me when I was 4 years old, and I just absolutely fell in love with it. It became my passion, and I just and all the kids in Hawaii, we grew up learning it, because in the 4th and 5th grade, we all learned the ukulele in school. So it was very common, for everyone to play. And I think that was part of it too, is just, there was just this huge community, of people just embracing this instrument, and it's such a big part of the culture. So for me, playing the ukulele, it wasn't anything unusual in Hawaii. So I just loved it, man. My parents would have to take it away from me so that I would do my homework, or, eat my dinner, or go take a shower, So, yeah, I loved it that much.
Very cool. The other thing that's very unique about your path and your story, which I find very interesting about this modern wave of technology that we're in with music. I mean, it used to be, you had to get discovered in a club or somewhere else, and, that telltale Hollywood sign of the executive snare and doing their thing. But you were on YouTube, and you did a cover of Harrison's While My Guitar Gently Weeps, and on YouTube you had the ultimate form of democracy voting for you. You got a lot of views, and that really vaulted you into kind of the public limelight. What was that like, to get that kind of response and to begin like that?
Oh man, it was such an honor. I mean, that was back in 2005, and I tell people this story. When that video first went viral, the version that first went viral, my name wasn't even on that video. It was it just said Asian guy shreds on ukulele, and that was basically it, you know. So and you know, and already it had over 10 million views, you know, and so I was like, oh, that's so cool, but nobody knows who I am. So yeah, I mean, it was amazing how many, you know, doors that opened for me. I mean, after that I started jumping on tours with other bands and, you know, opening for other bands. So it was really an incredible, just such a blessing.
You know, and the one thing, you know, as you read through your bio, there's all kinds of quotes and comments from people, but the one that caught me was Eddie Vedder, and I've seen him live, and he can transfix a crowd, and he's very familiar with the instrument, and he says that you're taking this instrument to a place that he just can't see anybody catching up to. What does that mean to have cats like that are so esteemed and large in the world of music, commenting on the way you play this instrument that you love, that goes back to childhood?
Yeah, no, it's just such an honor. Like I mean, I still can't even believe that he even knows who I am. So, you know, but it's really amazing, you know. So no, I'm just so honored. And you know, and Eddie Vedder, like, you know, I was so thrilled because, you know, he did an ukulele record, and man, I was so excited because I thought, man, he's gonna like just turn so many people onto the instrument, you know, because if Eddie Vedder plays ukulele, then you know the ukulele is cool. So yeah, so I think it was so cool when he came out with that record, and yeah, it's still one of my favorites.
You know, the one thing that's always cool about collaborations with people that are really big history, like you have Jack Johnson, Jimmy Buffett, Warren Haynes, you have all of these names. What do you learn from these people that have so many years of clout, that have so many, that such distinction and professionalism? What do you get from them, either by osmosis or maybe things they said to you backstage?
Yeah, no, I just love you know, I'm always asking them questions about how they approach music. You know, if it's like when I got to play with Warren Haynes, you know, just like talking about like, oh, how do you go about improvising, or how do you get your tone? You know, I'm always interested in looking at his setup, what kind of amps he used, what kind of strings or guitar he's using, you know, how he phrases things and how he feels things. I mean, it's just it's so awesome. I mean, even like watching people like Jimmy Buffett or Jack Johnson, you know, just how they're just so like themselves when they're on stage. You know, they get up there and they're just having fun and you know, and interacting with the audience, and they're doing their thing. And you know, when you see that, you're just like, oh man, that's so it's so inspiring, you know. And so I just love that. I mean, whenever I get to work with another artist, I just love just kind of getting into their head and in their headspace, and just kind of like just observing, you know, watching how they go about and do their thing, you know, how they prep, how they you know, do their sound check or rehearse with their band or whatever, you know. And I just kind of watch that and just be a sponge and absorb and try to absorb as much as I can.
So 21 years after your first release, you're still out there doing it. My question to you is this: if you have a dream tonight and you run into yourself around the time you started doing this and things took off in a whirlwind, what advice would you give your younger self?
Oh man, just take every opportunity, you know. Don't be afraid. And I think a lot of times, you know, I would always be intimidated, and so sometimes I would shy away from things because, you know, because you're intimidated, you don't feel you're ready. But you know, the thing is, like, you're never gonna be ready until you put yourself in those situations, you know, 100 times, you know. So I think that's the advice I would give myself, is just to, just don't be afraid, you know. I mean it's you know, I mean, it's okay to be afraid, but don't shy away from opportunities because of fear.
You know, there's a vocalist in Kansas City. Her name's Molly Hammer, and she's had a pretty long battle with cancer, and she's a wonderful human being, and she's still at it and fighting through it. I remember asking her after the first real wave of her publicly saying she had cancer and she beat it the first time, and I said, what did you realize after that? And she said, I don't say no anymore. I just stopped saying no. You know, if a gig comes up, kind of in the same vein of what you're saying, you know, I'm in, I'm going, I'm there. That's great advice. So let me ask you this real quick. What do you like best about waking up every day being a musician? What's the thing that you enjoy the most about that process?
Yeah, I just love how the ukulele, brings so much joy to people. But one of the things, and I would usually tell when I started touring, I would say this at the end of every show, and partially joking, but there's a lot of truth in it. I would tell people, you know what the best thing about being a touring ukulele player is that audiences all over the world have such low expectations. And I just and I just thought, it's so true, but it's like, and people laugh, but it's true. But there's a magic in that. I think that when you see the ukulele and it's just four strings and it's this little tiny guitar, and when you hear something that you wouldn't expect to come out of that little instrument, it's that same feeling that you get when you're like rooting for the underdog, and it's really nice. And I think it's such a friendly instrument. It doesn't intimidate people. People aren't afraid to pick it up and play it, even if they've never played an instrument before. Because you know how sometimes like the violin or the piano or the cello, like if you're, if you've never played an instrument before and you're like in your 40s or 50s or 60s, you may be intimidated to try one of those instruments. But for some reason, the ukulele doesn't. It just seems so friendly, and people aren't afraid to pick it up and play it. And I think that's why there's such a growing community of people who have been embracing this instrument, and it's even great for kids, because it's tiny. Kids can hold it and they can stand up with it and strum it and sing songs. And so I just think it's there's just something so wonderful about it. And I've just been in awe, just kind of seeing the popularity of the instrument just grow and grow over the last few years.
Since we specialize in jazz here at Neon Jazz, the one instrument that I always really love is the clarinet. I've asked clarinet players about it. It's such a happy sound, and they always warn me, listen, if you make one wrong note, the whole ship sinks. It's like it's this happy Benny Goodman at Carnegie moment, and then if you do slip, it's like the biggest piece of ice, and you're going to land hard. So my question is this: what is it about the uke that maybe people don't know that really is surprising that you can kind of illuminate us about the instrument?
Well, you talk about like the jazz, like jazz guitar or like the clarinet or whatever, it's like, I think the ukulele, it works well in a jazz setting. I mean, there have been lots of great jazz musicians who have picked up the ukulele, and have done, just beautiful standards and renditions and, arrangements of things. And I think the cool thing about it is, you basically have these four strings, and you can create a lot of you can do a lot of chord melodies, right, where you can play chords. And the nice thing is, because of the reentrant tuning, and you have a high string on as your fourth string, you can really you can put the top note on the first string, or you can put the top note on the fourth string. So you have these nice you have a second option, right, for your melody note. And so that lends itself nicely, into coming up with nice chordal arrangements for standards and tunes. And I think it's just I don't know. And I was always a huge Earl Klugh fan, so him playing all these great standards on the nylon string guitar, and the ukulele's nylon strings as well. So that sound was always something, I don't know, that I kind of gravitated toward, Earl Klugh, Charlie Bird, so yeah. So I think that the nylon strings is kind of one of the magical elements of the ukulele.
So everything's going to come down to this. My final question to you is this. Everyone has their perception of who they think you are, their version, your family, your friends, your fans, but you're living your life. Who do you think you are?
Oh, I like making people happy, and if I can do it through music or or whatever. I mean, I love being able to do something that I feel brings a little bit more joy, into the world. I mean, that's what I strive for, and And I love music. I think music is so important, and it's something that we all need, and I'm happy to be on both ends, whether it's receiving it or giving it, so so I'm just grateful.
It's a great answer. Jake, hey, thank you for taking some time out for Neon Jazz today. I really appreciate it. It's been refreshing.
Oh, thank you. You have a great day.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Hawaii, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Jake for his time, music, and cool. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit Neon Jazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.